Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Kraken. This is the podcast where we break down strategies and tools and the people that help businesses grow smarter, safer, and stronger. I'm your host, Steve Brickner from Kraken Technology Solutions. And today we're diving into something every business really struggles with, and that's hiring and retention and building a team that actually works and wants to stay with you. So let's be honest, technology can solve a lot of stuff, but without the people, you're really not going to align and you're not going to be successful. Nothing works. So today's guest, Robin, he is the founder of Pathway Consultants, and he helps businesses build better teams, reduce turnover, and hire with confidence. And honestly, that's something that every company really needs. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. So, Robin, let's talk a little bit about yourself and your background and maybe how you got into HR and business operations.
Yeah, I almost want to say I stumbled into it. I think that's to some degree the story of most HR professionals. I come from a background of just working in logistics, warehousing, retail, customer service, things of this nature.
Gotcha.
And developed an issue with my feet, so I just couldn't stand around so much, run around so much, and so I ended up pursuing desk jobs.
Gotcha.
And I was working here in Lakeland. I was working at a third-party logistics firm, and that job came to an abrupt end when they did a big layoff. I returned back to the staffing firm that had placed me there, Express Employment Professionals, and told them I need work. And they said, "You ever thought about working in recruiting?" And I said, "Well, I've been in management in many roles at many employers, and I was the guy that interviewed people, and I thoroughly enjoyed screening people and figuring out what they're good at and what they like to do so that I could place them and position them for success."
Right.
So I took the leap and went into it in November of 2019. And it was in March of 2020, as you'll recall, we had a little thing called COVID-19.
Yeah.
And we dove right into it as best we could. It was myself and the franchise owner. The rest of the staff had left for one reason or another. So I went from being the brand new greenhorn to being front desk, phone screener, interviewer, recruiter, business developer, and office manager all in one.
Yeah.
It was a good school for me, but that's where I started out.
Yeah, I think I see some parallels there, between how I got deep into IT and technology management. My boss got fired a year and a half into this business, into, being in the IT field.
Yeah.
And so it was either you figure it out and be successful, or you don't figure it out and you fail, and you move on to the next thing. So, yeah.
I think of Jude Law in Enemy at the Gates.
Right.
He has bullets and not a gun, and you just wait for the guy in front of you to drop the gun.
Just throw them.
Keep going, right?
So what really makes you passionate about helping now, that you're building your own company? What makes you passionate about helping companies with hiring or retention and building training programs and things like that?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Sweden and came here in the 90s originally and immigrated. And I have dual citizenship. We got that in 2003. It took a while. But I've had a lot of jobs. Right. And I've seen my share of poor management and bad practices and environments and whatnot. And to some degree, I'd like to think that I know a thing or two about building a culture where it gives you an okay gut feel on Sunday night to go to work on Monday morning, kind of thing. And I thoroughly enjoy being a part of creating that environment for people. I also thoroughly enjoy figuring out what makes people tick and what they're good at to play to their strengths.
Gotcha.
So that's the big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really takes some sort of a passion to help other people, especially when you're looking at what you're doing is helping position a business for growth.
Yeah.
Similar to technology, technology and people go hand in hand. And if you don't have the right people, just like with the right technology, you're setting yourself up for a pretty disappointing outcome. And, I think the people get overlooked way too often.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the impact of bad hiring versus good hiring?
Right.
For the
Someone can
business?
look excellent on paper.
Right.
And I'm one of those guys. My phone is just full of pictures of my kids and memes.
Right.
And I like all those cheesy inspirational memes off of LinkedIn and stuff. You've
Right.
seen them. And there's one where it shows like a like a clementine or whatever, and it's peeled, and you see all the wedges, but then
Right.
one wedge is out, and they put a garlic wedge in there instead, and it fits.
Right.
But it has no use. It serves no purpose.
Right.
You don't want to suddenly put
It
hunk of garlic
spoils
in
the
your mouth.
rest of the
Right.
clementine.
So you can hire someone who ticks all the boxes on paper. They know the words to say in that 30-minute interview with you to impress you.
Right.
But 3 months in, they're going to start to show
Right.
who they are and maybe the baggage they come with or the bad habits and things like this. And so there's a lot more to it with talent acquisition, screening and kind of figuring people out.
Right.
And you do that through creating an environment, starting with the interview process, where the prospective candidate feels relaxed
Right.
and opens up and shows you their true colors.
Right. Right. And you know, there's that old saying, one bad apple spoils the whole bag.
Right,
And
right.
that really is the truth, because when you bring someone in that doesn't fit culturally
Right.
within the organization, it
Yeah.
kind of it puts a bad taste in everybody
Yeah.
else's mouth. And the longer that you support that behavior
Right, right.
that they bring in, the worse it is for the rest of your team.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you know, I don't think most business owners realize how much that bad hire costs them
Right.
until it's really too late.
Well, it's also that they justify it. You know, the culture is what leadership permits, what they allow.
Right.
And very often you get these people who are high performers to some degree, or some specific thing that everybody else is maybe not great at, and then they're tolerated, you know, for all these other things they do that affect
Right.
the team, because the belief is that there's no way I can replace that person.
Right.
And it's just not true. And it doesn't mean that that person is a terrible individual. They just might be
Bad
a
fit.
wedge shoved into the wrong place, and
Right.
they should be over there, kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
And so truly taking the time to screen that, and then also piece together that puzzle, not force the pieces, but
Right.
actually build it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you'll see that in larger sales organizations. You'll have
Yeah.
that one particular sales guy that really kills it,
Right.
but his persona is like on all the time. He's not. He's
Yeah.
always that smarmy sales guy,
Mm.
and treats everybody as such. And I
Right.
think that can put a really bad taste in the rest of your team's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So, from your experience, what are
Mhm.
businesses really getting wrong when it comes to hiring?
What they're getting wrong is that they're not taking full advantage of the tools at their disposal. They're not delegating appropriately. They're not building systems appropriately. And the biggest challenge I see with small business owners especially is that they remain a technician in their organization.
Yeah.
They're not working on the company, they're working for it.
Right.
Stuff has to
Right.
flow through them, simple things, you know,
Right.
customer service calls and things.
Yeah. And you know, I think a lot of times early on, and you know this as well, it's
Yeah.
you know, you don't have much choice early
No,
on, but you have
no.
to get yourself out of that position as
Right.
quickly as you can, so that you can work on the relationships and the
Right.
you know, building trust throughout the community and things like that. When you're doing it all, it's pretty difficult.
Absolutely.
And you get in those times where you're like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
So I think at those
Yeah.
points, you kind of do a little praying, and you
Yeah.
talk to God, and you think, God, I need a sign that this
Yeah.
is the right thing for me to be doing at the moment.
Mhm.
And I think that's pretty important.
I think we all check that fleece regularly.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
no,
yeah,
if you fail to plan, then you're just planning to fail. That's something to certainly
right.
live by when you're trying to run a business. And you got to think 1, 3, 5 years into the future. And do I still want to be the technician in 5 years? Absolutely not.
Right. Right.
I don't want to be the technician in my company in 5 years.
No, you
So
have to
I
make a
build it.
decision early on.
Yeah.
Am I building a lifestyle business that
Right.
will just provide me a good living?
Yeah.
Or am I building a legacy
Right.
for the future?
Right.
And that's really what I'm working on is
Yeah.
building something way bigger than
Right.
than myself.
Yep.
And you know, you get to that time. Like right now, I'm at that point where I really could
Yeah.
use a technician
Yeah.
or you know a support guy to answer the day-to-day calls for my clients,
Right.
but
Yep.
the revenue doesn't quite match the need at this point. So
Right.
you know it makes it difficult. And you know I think the first couple of years are the real test
Yep.
for the people that really want to stick it out
Sure.
and get
Sure.
through it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about you know business owners that they'll just throw together a job description it really doesn't fit the job,
Yeah.
or they think it fits the job and then the job turns into something else, and the hire is like, this
Right.
is not what I was hired to do. You know,
No, exactly.
what do you think? How do you think you fix that?
I think everyone's been in that seat. I've definitely been in it where
Right.
I'm just like, this is not what I was hired for. And I think the problem stems all the way back to that the business owners are thinking, I need someone to do XYZ, and they just pick a job title out of the air.
Right.
And then they go on Google and they search for a job description for that title, and then they copy paste it and hire.
Right. Rather than building it for their company,
Right.
and their
When in
need.
reality, you didn't need, you know, a compliance person. You needed an operations person.
Right.
Or you didn't really need a business developer. You needed someone in marketing or something like this.
Right.
So the first thing that any good recruiter would do with their client would be to qualify the job order. What is it that you actually want and expect out of this role?
Right.
Now we can identify a title
Yeah.
and build the job description out of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you know, not just grasping at what you think the job title
Right.
should be. Really look at
Yeah.
what you're trying to build that position for.
Right.
And of course, there's always the you know other tasks as needed that goes
It's a
in.
beautiful, beautiful line, right? My get out of jail card.
So yeah, I mean, you got to be careful with that, I think,
Right.
and not overextend your other duties as required.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's something that I do too when I work with you know, business owners and managers is I visit the conversation of the career path
Right.
for the role. So, okay, this person starts here. What would the growth track look like for them? You know, this is
Right.
where they could grow to and
Right.
potentially be promoted into.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer of that when you're interviewing candidates and strong candidates for your job, the people that are strong candidates are going to be people who are actually concerned with what's my upward mobility here, what's my future
Right.
look like with your company, not just I need a job now, does it pay
Right.
enough to pay my bills?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Because you know, if you see an ambitious person
Yeah.
that fits the role well, they're not going to want to stay in that role forever.
No.
They want that upward movement, and they want to you know. So you need to have a plan in place or
Right.
be prepared
Right.
to lose people to the next opportunity. And sometimes that's okay.
Sure.
You know, certain companies aren't built necessarily for upward
No, I mean-
mobility in the job market, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
A lot of IT services companies are not built for a full-blown career
Right.
path. You know, they may stay in that industry and in the managed IT realm, but maybe they're going to go to another company and they're going to be a VP of sales
Right.
rather than
Right.
you know business development person.
Sure. Yeah.
Or you know whatever. Maybe you just don't have that role yet.
Sure.
Maybe you're not at that point. So I think being honest with the
Right.
candidate up front and saying this, you know, this may be a stopover for you, but
Well,
we're happy to
sometimes-
have you and build that
Right.
credibility for you.
So these are the two sides of the coin of retention, right? So you've got the ambitious candidate who's looking to advance themselves, and so you if you've done your homework and you prepared for it, then you can articulate that in the conversation with them.
Right.
But you certainly have other individuals who, for example, they come in, they just want to be an IT tech, so they learn IT,
Right.
but really they want to be in IT sales, and
Right.
your organization might not hire IT salespeople,
Right.
so they just need to use your organization to
Right.
pick up those skills, and that's perfectly fine because it's a mutual agreement.
Right.
But to have that communicated ahead of time. The ones who want to just pick up skill, if I can say it that crassly, okay, great. This is what I'm going to provide you. I'm going to train you in all these things, and let's revisit in a year.
Right.
Versus the one who, I want to grow. I want to supervise a team of IT technicians down the road.
Right.
Okay, well, let's lay out a roadmap then. First 6 months, you need to learn your role and become proficient in these 10 things. Next 6 months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That way you have a plan to work off.
If you work as a leader in the organization, you build this plan out, it's going to help your growth as well.
Right.
It's going to build your organization out. So I think having somebody like you come in and say, these are the strategies that you need to follow to get the people here and keep them happy and build your team.
Yeah.
All the while, the leader of the organization is saying, okay, if we can get him, get Robin working on that with us, then I can focus on growing the revenue in the business. And then maybe I'll need that sales guy or the VP of sales or whatever it may be.
My impression of the labor market in general, ever since COVID really, is that we've really strayed away from relationship. It's very transactional now on both sides.
Right.
Applicants have learned, and it's been proven through COVID, and I don't think so much anymore, but during COVID especially, you were told to job hop frequently to advance your income.
Right.
It was a market that favored applicants because people wanted to sit at home and just collect a stimulus check.
Right.
But you also have employers who they just have a need, a pain right now that they want to resolve. And so they just hire someone to resolve that pain. And they're expecting too much and offering too little.
Right.
And building this effort of retention to build a relationship, because Steve, I want you at my organization in 15 years. I want you to be my guy.
Right.
So let's make something happen here.
Yeah.
That has really begun to fade away in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And so a shift needs to happen mentally for employers and potential employees.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, I see a lot of since COVID, people don't want to come back to the office.
Yeah. Some people.
And I'm of the belief, I like a hybrid type environment where, work at home a couple of days a week, come to the office 3 days a week. But I feel like, you're building an organization together.
Yeah.
It's important that you're together most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the culture is created. I think that's where the camaraderie is built, and that's where you feel a part.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're sitting at home with no pants and a shirt on and, on Zoom meetings all day.
Yeah.
And there's real no human connection there. And I'm not opposed to sitting at home in a pair of shorts and doing Zoom meetings, but
especially on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that connection is really what builds a team.
Yeah. And it's also the psychology behind it. I worked at a place, a professional, very professional environment. Every position was licensed and whatnot. And a big part of what they enforced there and what was part of the onboarding process was that we had to dress in business attire, but we never saw clients in the office.
Right.
All our communication with them was either over the phone or via email. And some people really scratched their head over that, why do I have to do that, et cetera, et cetera. But they spoke to this point, and I've seen it proven in the years since. Just the fact of, if you've ever worked in a call center environment or on the phone, just smile when you talk.
Right.
Your voice is different.
It makes a big difference.
What you wear makes a difference. Did I shave this morning or not? Because if I didn't, then I'm going to feel slightly different, and it translates.
Maybe you feel a little scruffier. Maybe you're a little more gruff, and
If I'm sitting on a Zoom call in basketball shorts, it's going to show sooner or later.
Right.
I'm going to start slouching in my chair or whatever, So there's good and bad.
Yeah.
I'm all for having the balance, especially for stay-at-home moms like my wife and things like this, to be able to do that. Me personally, I I'm addicted to an office.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like having a space to get away, and because if I'm at home working, I'm probably going to do some laundry, and I'm probably going to take a little longer for lunch, and maybe I'm going to stop working at 3 o'clock. I'm probably going to get back on the computer by 7 o'clock and work until 11.
Right.
But that's disruptions in your workflow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not consistent. And being in the office, I think, is a whole different ball game. And like you said, dressing the part, whether you're seen by the public or not.
Yeah.
Yes, I wear jeans, but I always wear a nice fitted shirt. Some days I wear a dress shirt with a sport coat. It just depends on what I'm doing that day, but always clean, always, it goes to mindset, I think.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I think the younger generation have a harder time with it than Gen X and millennials do.
Sure.
But
we're very different.
We are. But hiring is one piece.
Yeah.
Keeping people around and retention.
Yeah.
That's where businesses really start bleeding money.
Right.
So let's talk about turnover and why does it happen so much right now? Do you think that ties back into that recommendation from the COVID times where they say turn over as many jobs as you can, or do you think it's a generational thing? Do you think it is so many companies overhire and then they do layoffs? What do you think that is?
I think it's all of the above. I think in our world today, we're kind of a drive-through world right now. We want that instant gratification. We want results right now. We don't want to fix things. We just replace things.
Right.
And it's like my wife and I, when we first got together and we were about to get engaged and whatnot, we agreed. For us, we're not calling it quits ever.
Right.
That doesn't exist in our vocabulary. If something's broken, we fix it. And that's a decision which leads to, you got to have those tough conversations.
Right.
And it's the same thing with an employment conversation. And something that I work with businesses to either train the business owner or their supervisors, if they're big enough to have that, on conducting one-on-ones with their staff. And one-on-ones was something that I really dove into 6 years ago and really fell in love with, because it at first I thought this is just one of those HR, let's all kumbaya and hold hands, nonsense, whatever things, but there's immense value in having the one-on-one, in creating that space where the employee and supervisor or HR or whoever can really connect on a personal level, if you will, and build rapport. And it translates over to having the relational equity. And so, as an example, if the company has 20 employees or so, you can do a one-on-one with them once a month.
Right.
And it doesn't inundate your calendar.
Right.
You got to control the conversation so it doesn't run on for hours, obviously.
Right.
But once you've had those one-on-ones, Steve and I have met for the past 12 months for one-on-ones. And usually how I introduce one-on-ones too is that, listen, I'm going to document notes from this conversation, but it goes in your personnel file. It's private. I'm not showing this to anyone.
Right.
The only people that will see this, if they wanted to, would be the owners or whoever's above me, kind of thing. But I'm going to revisit my notes from all of our one-on-ones when it comes time for me to prepare your annual review. Right. So that when I sit down with you to review how you did this year, it's not me sitting down for 15, 20 minutes, scratching my head. Yeah, Steve's a good guy. Let's give him a bump. It's actually tracking, hey, he ran into this roadblock. We set up this plan for overcoming it. And I checked in 2 months later and he had squashed it. And he had picked up this skill or whatever. Right. And so I can tangibly, in a documented way, track your progress. And it also gives you the relational equity with them, so that when Steve does something that Steve shouldn't have done, and I need to have that conversation with him to course correct, it's not the first time we're sitting down and talking. Right. And now it's different, right? Because now I'm like, Steve, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It gives you a position. It helps you to build that rapport with them. And again, this is all just retention,
Right.
because it shows and it communicates to the employee, my employer cares enough about me that they're dedicating this time to my progress and my time here, my development.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. And so, talking about the relational equity and things like that, what are your thoughts on work-life balance and separating your personal life from your work life?
It's extremely difficult to do, but it's very important to do.
Okay.
If I'm going to be short and sweet about it, I have been known to kick people out of the office for lunch. They're like, no, I want to sit at my desk. No, because the phone's going to ring, or you're going to get that
Right.
little pop-up from Teams or from Outlook for an email, and then you're going to be tempted, and you're going to click on it, and you're going to work.
Right.
Get out, relax, call your wife, call your husband, girlfriend, whatever. Don't think about work. And when I interview people, typically I'll have the conversation with them, and I'll say, this job will take every minute that you'll give it.
Right.
So be sure that you give it the time that you're supposed to give it.
Yeah.
This is a full-time position, so you're giving it the 40 hours a week.
Right.
After that, go home and rest. The place isn't going to burn down over the weekend. We'll start again on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, making sure that they have that good balance for their home life.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says, you can't ever leave it all at home.
Yeah. It's tough.
I think that being understanding when people have things going on at home and showing a genuine interest
Yeah.
and what's going on in their life, I feel like that's
Yeah.
pretty darn important, because end of the day, we're all human beings. We're not robots that
Precisely.
come to an office and, clock in and clock out, and,
We're not AI.
and you don't shut down at the end of the day. We're real human beings, and we have real issues going on. And, honestly, a lot of times the people at work are the only people
Yeah.
that someone has to talk to.
Yeah.
And I think so many people just don't realize that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people don't have a life outside of work and home.
Right.
That's it. They don't have a lot of friends around. Maybe they go to church and maybe they participate in a group, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just go sit in the chapel on Sunday mornings and they reflect and they pray.
Yeah.
But sometimes they need somebody to talk to.
Yep.
And I think as a leader, we should be servant leaders, and we should serve our people.
Yep.
And I think so many business owners get so wrapped up in what they've got going on that they forget that there is life inside of their office. There are people that depend on them, not just for a daily or a weekly paycheck.
Yeah.
Sometimes they depend on them for support.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just think back to previous employers. Before you did Kraken and all this, think back to previous employers. The ones that you remember fondly are typically the ones who not just provided you a paycheck, but they provided you with that mental reprieve, if you will.
Right.
It's anyone who works full time is typically spending more time with their work colleagues and boss than with their spouse.
Exactly.
With their children.
Yeah.
I've been when I have been a W-2 in the recent 10 years, I have spent 50 to 70 hours a week in office working.
Right.
I'm one of those people I become a workaholic. I like to see the needle continue to move, and so it's just kind of, if I stay late today, I can move it even farther, because now the phone isn't ringing for an hour and I can do this, this, and this. And I think it's very important to identify that balance. I have 2 young ones and 1 on the way, and coming home and then I get 30 minutes with them and seeing their faces, and I missed you today, Dad. Yeah. And you tuck them in, and then you're just like, man, when I was at the office, I told myself I was being an awesome dad because I'm providing X amount of dollars for them, and they can go to this school and they can wear this new shoes and whatever. But then I come home and I'm there for maybe an hour.
Right, and then it's bedtime and bath time.
Yeah, and they wanted to build the new Lego set, but I didn't have time.
Yeah.
and then it makes you feel pretty crummy.
Yeah.
And to have that perspective. And so I've had employers who I remember fondly who took care of me by allowing me space when I needed it. I had when my son was to be born was when I first started working at Express Employment
Oh, wow.
Professionals, and so literally my first 2 or even 3 weeks of employment was from home.
Oh,
But my first 2-3 weeks of employment was sitting at a computer and watching training modules, so it worked out.
Right.
You know, just you can sit here or there, right?
right.
I had an employer that I was at where I was in management, and my brother went into the hospital, and without getting into all the nitty gritty of it, we almost lost him.
Wow.
And I practically lived by his bedside in the ICU at Lakeland Regional
Yeah.
for 2 weeks, and he was in a coma for those 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I took my laptop with me and, followed up on emails and did everything I could bedside, through the night or whatever. And I'm eternally grateful to that employer, that boss, because he could have just gone the route of, okay, you have so and so much PTO, so and so much, before you got to apply for
Right.
FMLA or whatever.
Right.
But he didn't go that route. He went human.
Yeah.
And I greatly appreciate that. So to reflect that, and I'm a firm believer of that. The sign of a good leader is someone who builds leaders.
Right.
And we can go down that rabbit hole for forever. But it's
Yeah, exactly.
building leaders is being human with people.
Right. Yep. That's fantastic, and I don't think so many people just don't recognize that. They think, oh, I'm the boss. I've got to be tough and I've got to be firm.
Right.
Um,
Sometimes.
Sometimes you do, but compassion gets you a lot farther, I think,
Yeah.
than that firm. Firm but caring is important. So one of the things we see all the time, companies hire people and then just tell them, go do this job.
Yeah.
So
In there.
yeah. So just throwing somebody into the fire, it's not gonna create a very efficient employee. It's not gonna create a happy employee, and it's not going to get the results that you want out of hiring somebody. So let's talk about what does good onboarding really look like, and how long should a person be in training, and,
Right.
and how many touch points should there be during that period?
Yeah. No, I mean, I chuckle to myself when I see a job posting where it says, the big red flags of we're one big happy family here, or you will wear many hats, or you got to dive right in, whatever, trial by fire. We need someone who's tough, who's got
Right.
thick skin. And it's just like, no, you need to care for the people that you actually invested time and money into screening and bringing onto your team.
Right.
Because you're just going to spend that money over and over again every 3 months at that pace,
Right.
So I work with businesses, with business owners to build a 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Okay.
Is typically what I do. There's going to be roles where you don't need 90 days to train a guy
Right.
to deliver parts to these 3 addresses.
Right.
Of course, that follow the GPS, carry the boxes in and out. But in general, there's more to it than just the basic tasks. It's also easing them into the company and the culture of your company, and assimilating with the team and becoming a part of the team. I kick off orientation, new hire orientation, by doing one-on-ones.
Okay.
Introducing the one-on-one process early. And what I do is, as long as I don't have a bajillion employees to do one-on-ones with, and my schedule permits it, I like to conduct one-on-ones once a week.
Okay.
With new hires for at least the first month. Check in every Friday. How are things going, Steve? What was tough this week? What seems odd to you this week? What questions do you have? Was there anything on the job description or in the interview process that wasn't clear? Did I pitch it right? Because I want to do it better for the next guy.
Right.
And then after that, going into, if I can, I do it weekly for the 90 days so that I've really kept them close and shown that I care about them learning, progressing, and staying. And then I'll graduate them out of orientation into monthly one-on-ones. But yeah, the one-on-one, process is something that I consider to be integral to the onboarding process. And then, of course, you've got things like just mapping out the basic trainings. Maybe give the first week for just the culture side of things. They're going to sit one day with Bob and one day with Sue and so on and so forth, just to kind of get a feel for what is it that Bob and Sue do. Because I'm not going to do what they do, but I'm going to send stuff to them. Or people are going to call and ask, hey, can I talk to Bob? And then I'm going to ask, what should I say it's in regard to? And when they tell me, oh, I want to ask about this invoice, oh, well, I know now because I sat with Bob and Sue that they don't need to talk to Bob, they need to talk to Sue.
Right.
And so it positions you for success. And it can be scary for business owners to imagine so much time invested into the onboarding process, but it truly is an investment. And I think any small business owner can attest to the comparison of that building a business is like observing a tree. And you may have heard this, and I'm stealing this from a guy I watched on a podcast recently, but he said, when you look at a tree and you see the crown of the tree bearing much fruit, and you're so impressed and you want your business to be big and bearing much fruit. But the thing about trees is, however big the crown of the tree is reflected under the soil in the root system as well. And that's that work behind the scenes, the late nights and all that stuff that they have put in, all the tears, all the sacrifices financially or relationally that they have put into building this tree to grow as big as it has. And I would argue that it's the same way with investing into your people. Take time to grow the root system so that they can grow large and flourish in your organization.
Yeah, that's a pretty important distinction there. You can't just let them loose. They've got to.
You can, but you'll be letting them loose in more than one way.
Right,
probably,
right.
So.
And then you think about the cost of hiring and all that. One employee can cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just to get them in the door.
Yeah.
So think slowly when you go to train them and get them properly vetted for the job. And
properly vetted. It all falls back to very clear communication and communication of a very clear structured path.
Right.
Now, the path isn't going to be for everybody, and even if you do your due diligence with screening and everything like that, it might turn out that person just wasn't a fit. That one snuck under the radar. Whatever, it's going to happen. Yeah. But at least then you have done your due diligence, you have documentation, and so if you need to move towards exit planning, then you have grounds for it.
Right.
And so now we're getting into things like wrongful termination situations and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That is not a fun thing to do.
No.
Yeah. Firing someone is not something you ever really want to do.
No.
It's not easy. It's not comfortable for either party. And if you haven't made sure that you have all your ducks in a row when you get ready to terminate that person, it's going to cost you a whole lot more, because people are really happy to go ahead and file suit against you.
Right. It's important to disconnect emotion. I know that sounds cold, but you need to disconnect emotion, because you can't just be ticked off at someone and then say, get out of here, you're fired. You can, but is that how you want to conduct business? Is that how you want to build your business? Because do you want to be known as the person who actually works with people through things, or do you want to be known as the person who just uses people for a while and drops them as soon as they're not a yes man or whatever? You know? So it's there's a lot to it, and then you've got the internet, and you've got anonymity with the internet, and there are things like Glassdoor reviews and Reddit and things like this, and the people who typically leave reviews are the people who are upset. They're feeling emotional, and they're feeling not heard because communication broke down somewhere, and now they're without a job. They're without an opportunity to provide for their family. They're not going to make rent this month. They're going to eat a can of beans for dinner, And so they want to take out that anger, that frustration on someone. And you're the guy that fired them, so they're going to take it out on you.
Exactly.
And I would imagine that there are many employers out there who, had they gone through the proper procedure, documented conversations that led to a termination, and then conducted that conversation, that exit conversation appropriately, then they wouldn't even be in a situation where they have a wrongful termination suit. So
Right.
there's a way to go about severing a relationship respectfully. And that's the key.
Yeah.
Communicate and respect.
Yeah. Doesn't just apply to business.
No.
But so one of the great things, and you know, it's similar to my business. It's really what you're doing is fractional HR leadership,
Basically, yeah.
for small to mid-sized organizations. What do you see as the ideal company that you're working for? What type of size do you really see a company when they start to need support from an HR
Yeah.
company?
So where I fit in nicely is anywhere from the solopreneur, 1 or 2 employees, husband, wife maybe, all the way up to 20, 25 employees.
Right.
The reason I say that is typically companies of this size headcount, they don't have a dedicated HR department.
Right.
So they don't have someone to lean on for these things. And that's where I can come in. And I specifically target companies that are looking to grow, looking to scale in the near future.
Right.
I help companies with growing strategically, but also rapidly in headcount. And there are certain avenues to go in which you can scale your organization over the next 6 months, 12 months to where maybe you've doubled or even tripled your headcount.
Right.
But we'll target positions that are revenue generators. So companies like landscaping firms, contractors, carpenters, plumbers, HVAC companies, and also companies that have field reps like sales reps and things like this. These are people who have direct impact on revenue. And so I sat down with a guy a while back and I said, hey, how many crews do you have on the road? He said, I have 3. And I said, what if you had 6 by the end of the year? What would that look like for your books? And he said, well, that would be huge. That would potentially double what I've got going on. And I said, okay, now what if I told you that I could help you take advantage of programs that are in place to offset the cost of hiring these people by a significant amount?
Right.
Where you were paying 15, 16 bucks an hour for an entry-level candidate, you could be paying 3 or 4.
Wow.
And that's crazy, because now you're hiring 5 people where you would have hired 1. And so I've helped multiple businesses do that, and I'm working with some right now on these programs and with ramping up their processes and their company, and it's propelling them into significant growth.
Right. That's fantastic. So let's talk about how you actually work with the clients that you engage with, because I think this is, where you make the HR solutions really accessible to growing businesses that really they need help in hiring and retaining and training these folks. So let's talk about first. Let's talk about your retainer packages.
Yep. So I work with retainer packages. I have 3, and they just allow you X amount of hours per month. And so typically I start everybody at the base package for just 4 hours a month, and it's a reduced rate compared to what I would normally charge just for an hour of consultation here and there, kind of a thing. But that allows time for things like setting up the program I referenced, or with reviewing things like your handbooks or your E-Verify and I-9 procedure and things like this. When companies grow, headcount have milestones, and the first one hits at 15 employees, and a lot of small businesses don't know this. I don't know that the Department of Labor is going to show up knocking at everybody's door as soon as they hit 15 employees, but technically they could.
Right.
And so it's important to make sure you get your ducks in a row, and in my opinion, you should get those in a row before you get to 15.
Right.
So that you're ready. Again, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so I work on retainer package with clients for that. And if you're on retainer package, that also includes a significantly reduced rate for headhunting services that I can also provide for them.
Cool. That's awesome. So businesses, they really can just use you as their HR leadership and maybe even get you to grow their business for them.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
If I don't grow their business, then I'm not going to be on retainer very long.
Yeah.
So it behooves both of us, so to say. But
so in the first 30 days, what does it typically look like with a new company that you're working with?
Yeah. So it all depends on what they're bringing me on for retainer for. Most companies that I'm working with right now are hiring me for my services to advise them on this process with setting up access to those workforce management programs so that they can begin hiring. And so the first month is a lot of information gathering, a lot of paperwork. At the end of the day, what I provide in that process is I help them with a whole lot of paperwork so that they don't have to spend all those late nights filling in a box with another FEIN, kind of like that. But then once things get outside of that and we've got the program set up and whatnot, then it's helping with maintenance of the program and things like this.
Right.
I help with things like I can shadow. I'll train supervisors on the one-on-ones, for example. Maybe I'll conduct a one-on-one with them in the room for staff the first month. Then I'll come in next month and now the supervisor will conduct the one-on-one. I will be an observer and interject only as needed and then provide feedback afterwards.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
Cool. So I think, that's one of the important things that you bring is understanding some of these programs that are available to small business.
Yes.
That is maybe not so publicly known.
No.
And giving them that opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So that's a cool piece to the whole puzzle. So now let's do something fun and do a little quick rapid fire.
Oh boy.
All right. So first thing that comes to mind, what's the biggest hiring mistake?
Lack of attention to detail.
Okay. Best interview question for a candidate?
It's supposed to be rapid, yeah.
Well, I mean, we're
honestly,
getting older, so rapid, it may not be so rapid anymore. It's all
I
right.
still have a little hair left. No, the tell me about yourself question can make or break the interview.
Okay.
It's very important. My approach to an interview is to get the other person talking and then I shut up.
Yeah.
Because they'll do the job for me.
Right. Big red flag in a candidate.
A whole lot of bad talk about previous employers. A whole lot of it didn't work out, they were horrible, whatever, stuff like that.
Nothing's ever their own fault.
It seems like every manager you've ever worked for was a horrible boss.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder.
What is a green flag in company culture?
Green flag in company culture. I would say a place where staff tell their friends, tell their family about how awesome it is to work there.
Right.
Or if they hear that someone needs a job, you should apply here. I don't know if they're hiring, but you should apply here.
Cool.
That word of mouth, I mean, that's marketing 101, right? Is word of mouth is the best kind of marketing there is.
Awesome. What is one thing every business should fix immediately?
One thing every business should fix immediately. That's a long list. I think if I'm going to speak to small business owners and specifically my impression of here in Polk County, I would say one thing that should be fixed immediately is the forecasting. Again, laying that plan. I keep beating that dead horse, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
All right.
Look 5 years into the future. Where do you want to be? And start building an action plan of how you're going to get there. Set milestones, achievable goals that are short term so that you can celebrate small victories on your way.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a fun talk. I think the biggest takeaway here for everybody should be that hiring an HR is not just paperwork, it's strategy. It really is a strategic part of your business growth plan.
Yes.
Critical part. And so if anybody needs what you're offering, and I think everybody does, let's tell them how to get in touch with you.
Yep. And my website is in its final stages of development, but you can access it already now. That's going to be www.pathwayllc.us. And I'm developing actually a series of quite extensive resources that I'm putting on there that I'm giving away for free, and I'm dumping 10 years of experience into each and every one of them. I've been working on them literally for a year.
Wow.
I'm starting to get them finalized now and polished and trying to make them look pretty so that you don't go cross-eyed reading them. But that's literally a free resource. So look for that on the site. You can call me 863-286-0377 or email me info@pathwayllc.us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Robin. It's been great talking with you today. So, guys, if you're struggling with hiring or onboarding or just trying to keep great employees, this is a conversation you really need to have with Robin. And as always, if you need to secure your business from the technology side, that's what we do at Kraken Technology Solutions. So give us a call and we'll help you out. Thanks for listening to Release the Kraken. See you next time.